Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome once again to yet another episode here on Life Signatures Radio. We are in the middle of a series where we're talking about injecting purpose in a job that you hate. I know you're saying, why should I stay in the job that you hate? I'm talking to you who is staying there. Because the more you stay in a job that you hate and you're not injecting purpose into it, the more you're corroding, number one, yourself, and number two, the organization. Of course, the most obvious solution is to quit. But many of us do not have that gut. In fact, by the way, quitting might not necessarily be the only solution. The other solution might be to inject, meaning to inject purpose right there where you are, because you know in your mind this is temporary. This is not my life. This is not my destiny. I'm gonna move on. But before I do, there's something I can do about it. That's what I want us to talk about in this series. So stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
So I've given you some of my bizarre stories as I was working in jobs that I hated. One was the job that I was doing, looking for a phrase in papers strewn around in a cellar, darkened and dusty. And then the other one was when I was teaching people how to double click with the mouse. I can keep telling you many others, but some of those I did not necessarily hate the job. I hated the managers or the leaders in the organization. I loved the work that I was doing, I tell you. I loved it. I loved grooming people. I loved working with young people. I loved seeing them blossom. But I was being, messed up by the greedy leadership of that organization. I'm not going to talk about that. Today, let us continue talking about how we can be able to inject meaning in a job that we hate. In a job that you hate, how do you inject meaning into it? Listen, I will never forget the day I took a leadership course at Watoto Church, Kampala, some maybe 5 or so years back. Central to that particular course, we were doing a book by Stephen R. Covey. Actually, they brought in a facilitator from Stephen R. Covey. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the habits dealt with that book was begin with the end in mind. And of course, we were supposed to come up with our own personal vision, personal mission, if I remember correctly. It was a personal mission we were supposed to come up with. Now listen, a certain lady took the course together with us. But you could see that she was elderly. She was probably in her late 50s or early 60s. And I think she got so discouraged about not living a life of purpose, so much so that she actually dropped out. I remember an incident where I was talking so casually and so easily about my purpose. And for her life, she would Google. You could see her, quote unquote, Googling in her mind. Try and find out, why am I here in this earth? Why am I born? And you could see the physical manifestation of discouragement in her face. And that's the last I saw of her. See, there will come a moment in life where we will question the purpose for our existence. We will question the meaning of our lives being there. Especially, listen to this, with the work that we do. You know why? Because you spend much more time at work than any other place. You don't spend a lot of time at home as compared to your workplace. You spend a lot of time at your work. In terms of averages, you see, the more time you spend at home probably is just sleeping. But your active life, when you are alive and walking, the most time you spend is, in fact, nearly 3/4 of your time you spend at work. And at some moment in time, you're going to question. In fact, you should question. You must question the purpose of that work that you're doing. Invariably, we will find ourselves in jobs that we hate for very many reasons. Of course, you know that jobs are not necessarily the way they used to be when our fathers were finishing their high schools. They were being given secretarial jobs when their peers were finishing university and so on. Companies were already booking them for work. It's different today. Different because there's an abundance of people who have degrees. Actually, the people who have degrees are so many that many of them also went back to get a second degree and to get a third degree and to get a master's and so on. So degrees have become as common as certificates. Now the in thing is masters. But the jobs that are available are very few. So what happens is that invariably people find themselves in jobs they didn't want, probably jobs they are overqualified for. There's a time we did a series about that in these episodes. They find themselves for jobs they are overqualified. Maybe even they find themselves in jobs that they never studied. Just because they have a degree or a master's, they end up being recruited over someone who doesn't have. And so you find yourself like a round hole in a square peg, or a square peg in a round hole, whatever Steve Jobs called it. And therefore you've got to be there and you've got to deliver. You've got to work because that's where you spend your most time. You've got to deliver. It has got to mean something to you. It's got to fulfill you. It's got to give you joy. But it doesn't. It doesn't have to. The question is, what are you going to do about that situation? There will be a moment in your life where you question the purpose of your existence, especially with the work and the vocation that you're doing. Even those who are smack in the middle of purpose. I talked about this. Even those ones who are smack in the middle of their purpose deployment, at times they find themselves discouraged. I had a whole series that I did about this. They find themselves questioning the reason for their existence. How about those ones who don't have purpose? How about those ones who are in a job that does not connect to their purpose, does not connect to their passion, does not connect to their feelings of fulfillment? For instance, a friend of mine spent quite a bit of money on a project he considers part of his purpose. And for a while, he felt as if there was nothing he was doing because the results were just not immediately apparent. Such is one major characteristic of purpose pursuit. So, if a person who is pursuing purpose will at times feel purposeless because of the nature of purpose taking time, how about the person who realizes that they are not pursuing their purpose at all? If you came to the realization that your life lacks purpose, your life lacks meaning, listen, the temptation to stop living that life and start looking for purpose is ever on your mind. I'm not so sure that it will be a good idea in some cases to stop living here, as in existing in this job. You're not there. You see, you're there in body, but you're not there in spirit, I'm not so sure if that is a good approach that you should have. But in some few cases, it has worked for some people. What I tend to think is that you can inject purpose into your very existence, into your very life, into your very present life, even as you navigate into your calling. You can start. You see, it's a journey. The purpose discovery is seldom an event. That's why injecting purpose into your life is not going to be into the job that you hate. It's not going to be an event. It's going to be a process. And this process is part and parcel of navigating towards your purpose, or towards another vocation, or maybe towards another department, or maybe another task or another project within the organization that is going to speak into your purpose. For me, let me tell you how it was for me when I first got another job. After the 2 jobs I told you about, I started asking for responsibilities. I started saying that I feel I can lead a team. And I started making sure that the organization knows that I am angling for that and I'm able to do it. But in the meantime, I was excelling at what I was doing. I know I'm going way ahead of myself. And I know we'll talk much more about this in the episodes that are coming up. The thing is, it takes a minute. That's a metaphor. But it takes quite a while for you to realize your purpose. Even when you find yourself in a job that you hate, probably the acute way of sorting the situation would be to get out. And I can advise you to do that. But if you're not getting out, the next best thing to do is to start looking, relooking, reviewing, and starting to look at ways of injecting purpose into that particular job, meaning into that particular job that you have at the moment. How you're going to do that? That's what we want to start discussing in the episodes that are coming up. There are probably 4 or 5 ways that I'm going to discuss that are going to help us, and each way is going to come in its own episode. But until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.